opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program host and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions held by TCN TV Network Incorporated. Due to the social nature of this broadcasting channel, videos may contain content copyrighted by another entity or person. The TCN TV Network claims no rights to the said content. TCN TV Network cannot be held accountable for the copyrighted content. TCN TV Network is a messenger and sharer of information and strives to verify but cannot warrant the accuracy of copyrights or completeness of the information on this program.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Reel. I'm your host, Andrew Perrie, and we are live in Brampton at the MyTCN Network studios. And today I've got a very special guest, Dan Steinfeld. Thank you for coming on.
Okay,
Appreciate
pleasure,
it.
My pleasure.
Dan's got a great story. He's got a big background with almost a multitude of different industries and different things that you've done. And now you are currently, I'm going to use the word, almost revolutionizing the Ontario method of buying and selling real estate anyways. It's been done in a few different cities across the world, but not so much in Ontario, right? The auction method, right? So thank you very much for coming on the show. Before I get into all that, how I like to open things up, get things loose and things like that, is to get to know you a little bit better, and I want the audience to get to know you a little bit better. And because you have such a strong background in other industries, I kind of want to know, a little bit more on the history of that and how you've learned things over the years that you've brought into your real estate business. So. Start us off, man. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
All right. Well, it's very cool to be here. Thanks for having me. And
Absolutely.
My background's sort of all over the place. It's a little bit unique in that comes from two very opposite fields, which are both sales and finance, where typically the two don't commingle, where sales guys are trying to spend the money and finance guys are trying to save it as much as possible. So it's been a bit of a flip-flop, but I won't go back too far, but started out, I'm a CA, which I guess now is a CPA, so that's a chartered accountant.
Okay. So for those who don't know, CA means...
Yeah, so I'm a number cruncher. That's where the career started out of school. I was with PricewaterhouseCoopers for a few years, doing the audit thing, so super exciting work, going into businesses and crunching their numbers, learning about all the inner workings, but that was never really what my guts were telling me to do. It was what school sort of led me to do. It was nice to have a well-paying job right out of school, so I went with that. And one thing led to another from prior involvement with different people. I got a phone call while I was on a job from the Toronto Argonauts, which is I don't know how many people are outside of Canada, but that's Toronto's professional football team. I'm a huge football fan, and seemed like a crank call at the time, because why would the president of the Argonauts be calling me while I'm on an audit job? But my name was dropped because of some sales stuff I'd done during university, and I was into sponsorship at that time, and they asked if I wanted to do an interview for corporate sponsorship.
Holy smokes.
So that was definitely, I was no kids, not a lot of responsibility. It was not a terrible time to take a leap of faith into something that seemed super cool. And next day, called in sick. Sorry, PwC, I wasn't really sick.
Cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, 20 years later. And went for an interview and was just blown away by how open and unusual that world seemed. It was, a different kind of cool from what you'd picture from a football team, but I jumped in head first. A couple months later, became the corporate sponsorship guy for the Argos, and got back into sales for a good year.
So what was the first position that essentially that you got with the Argos? Because you moved up rather quickly, or how did that work? Or?
Yeah, I started there as their manager of corporate partnerships, which is a fancy way of saying sponsorship guy. So my role was trying to secure partners that would be, the logos on the field and the stuff you see when you're on TV, the giveaways that get thrown into the stands. So just trying to connect with different companies and establish relationships that way. But yeah, as you said, I mean, things changed rather quickly there. Inside of a year, our CFO at the time, he took a role with the Vancouver Olympics, the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver, and became their CFO. And so this was back in, I guess, 2007. And strange as it might seem, there weren't a lot of finance guys working for the football team at the time. And so my first year was spent getting to know the business, getting to know the partners, but they started transitioning me back into finance, saying, why don't we hire from within? And I became the director of finance in the year that followed, which then transitioned into the VP finance and CFO of the team for about 3-4 years. So
that's crazy.
Very different hat, yeah. So I took off the partnerships hat, put on the finance hat, which was very different, as you can imagine, from working as an auditor. It was finance, but now I'm doing salary cap stuff and crunching the numbers and managing the books of a professional football team. It was awesome stuff.
Awesome, but I find that, for me anyways, that sounds a little stressful.
It was, Not
like running your own brokerage. Right?
No, it was.
That's not stressful at all.
Yeah, not quite brokerage stressful, but no, it was not for the faint of heart. One of the first tasks I had was taking on an HST audit, which some of us might know what that's like if you've gone through them on a personal level. But this was for basically a price tag, let's call it, where we were on the hook for close to $12 million in HST.
Oh, man.
And so those numbers are unheard of for any company. Yeah. But it was my job to try to figure out what and if there was with that number that wasn't accurate and try to whittle that down. So that was a 3-year part of my job, was just dealing with a $12 million price tag with the government.
Oh, jeez.
And then, sidebar, stressful-wise, I mean, the first payroll I ever did for the players, these are large men who are intimidating men. And as much as I might be the signature on their paycheck, I'm also, a 5'10" skinny guy who probably, let's just say I couldn't take any of them in a thumb wrestle. So, the first payroll I did, the way it works is they get their checks after the game, and there's a little after party after the game, and everything's fun. But I walked in, and I guess I had screwed up something, the taxes, the whatever, and one of the guys from across the bar yells over the moment I walk in, he goes, "Steinfeld!" And I don't know who this guy is, and I'm thinking for a second I'm pretty cool, and then for a second this is not a good situation. Anyway, he laced into me and gave me the gears of why you don't screw up players' paychecks that day, and never made that mistake again. But sometimes you need that intimidation to change. But it was it was a very cool experience. Ran with that for a while. And then that transitioned one more time because of the sales background and because of getting to know a few more of the executive partners we had in that role. I was able to meet a few more players from around the league. I transitioned back to sales and became the VP of sales for the team. I wore both hats for a bit, which, as I said, doesn't mesh well when half of my brain is trying to do one objective and the other half is arguing with that. So I stepped back as the CFO and moved into sales, where I managed at that point. It was the tickets and that sort of sales for the team. So when the 100th Grey Cup was in town and Toronto hosted that, that was just a super cool event. Justin Bieber and that was coming off of, I can't even remember all the acts, but it was just a super cool thing that we were involved in, and I had to sell that out. So that was a $15-20 million event, and that was kind of the pinnacle of my role there. And we won that year, so got a ring and got all the cool stuff about that goes along with being on a football team, not playing but getting to enjoy that. And after that, it was kind of like, okay, well, that's about as good as it gets, right? So you didn't get scared out of the position by the guy at the bar. Didn't get that exactly. Knock on wood, that scared me straight, so to speak, and things just grew from there, and the experience was awesome. Met a lot of good people, and that's amazing. And then transitioned out of that into being on my own. So it was very cool. That's one crazy story. Working for a professional athletic team, especially like something as prestigious as the Toronto Argonauts. So that's amazing. We're going to take our first break of the show, and when we come back, we're going to get into what Dan ventured into right after that position with the Argos.
At Benjamin Law, we understand the real cost of personal injuries. As the victim of an accident, you may be the one who's physically hurt, but your main concern is that your family are the ones who will pay the price. Benjamin Law will be there for you, helping, supporting, and working tirelessly to resolve your personal injury case. Call 1-855-899-4878 or visit benjaminlaw.ca and let our family of lawyers help your family.
Okay, we're back. Thank you very much for sticking with me, guys. We are live with Dan Steinfeld from On the Block. Dan or Daniel? Your Facebook's Daniel. I like to shorten it.
It's all good.
Get,
yeah.
help
Save
build
time. Yeah, drop the second.
Actually, one time I shortened it for a client, and I'm like, I think his name was Jonathan. I was like, hey, John, nice to meet you. He's like, it's Jonathan.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, so sorry
There
about
are
that.
those out there that'll.
Yeah, well, thanks for sticking with us, guys. Before we left on our first little break there, we were talking about how Dan was working with the Argos, and we touched on a little bit of his history and, his background. And now we're going to get into the part of the story where, you've left, such a high-paying, high empowerment of a job, right? And now you're getting into real estate. So walk us through what made you kind of leave that role. Yeah, how did that happen? You'd think that would be a dream job for most kids.
Yeah, you know what, and it was.
And it was.
I mean, at a point in time, it's a business like any other, right? So, like I said, once you reach kind of that cool factor, the cool was always there, but at some point I could just buy a ticket and still enjoy it and have my friends there. And what happened after that was my wife, Katie, who a lot of people and a lot of you out there probably know, she's been in real estate now for the better part of 10 years.
Okay.
And she was doing that alongside when I was at the Argos, and we were also expecting our fourth kid at the time.
Whew.
So things were.
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. So things were not slow.
Right.
And at that point I was thinking, as I was transitioning out of it, I thought, why don't I was really interested in what she does, and I was kind of living vicariously through her.
Yeah.
On the cool factor and all the cool things that you do in real estate. And I thought, I'm going to get my license because if nothing else, 4 kids in the house, maybe it'll be nice to have a backstop of someone else who has a license if we need to, do showings or share this or whatever. Truth be told, though, that's not how Katie rolls, right?
Yeah.
And so kid was born, and I'm like, hey, you have any clients or anybody you want to throw to me? She's like, go get your own clients. She's like, I'm good, stay home with the kids. And I'm like, that's fair. But, it was an opportunity to start exploring that myself. And it was a nice transition from the sports world because a few of my first clients were actually from that world. So a lot of my early clients were football guys. And that allowed me to get my feet wet with some unique situations. And the two of us started working alongside each other in different ways. We were at the same brokerage when I started, so I joined the same brokerage she was at, and learned the ropes, truthfully from her, seeing what she does, and we just kind of grew together that way, doing different deals and meeting people and building our referral networks, and for me it was trying to understand what made the industry, unique and each client unique and what might have been missing. I was kind of all about what does this industry need? Because I think every realtor... What was that?
Finding the gaps.
Finding the gaps, yeah. So, I think every realtor wants to differentiate. It's so competitive of an environment, and everybody wants to have that thing that, I do this, no one else does, so call me. It wasn't so much about that, but it was more, if there's going to be this many people out there, and this many people as consumers who aren't gung-ho in love with realtors, there's something here that's missing, or there's got to be a commonality to some degree of people who have, I don't want to say that complaint, but that question that hasn't really been answered well enough. And that's what started leading us to exploring, among other things, building our own brokerage out of that. Because the same thing I've heard from a lot of realtors that are out there is, when you're working under another heading, there's a ton of benefits, and I'm a big fan of working for another brokerage. But when you've got ideas that maybe don't mesh or don't follow the mantra of where you are, you've got the option of tucking it away, or I got to do this on my own.
Right. And for what you guys have planned and have already been doing is something very unique that a lot or most brokerages probably wouldn't be open to, right?
I mean, it's one of those things that at the time definitely it was unheard of, and it didn't just stop. I mean, we're talking about auctions, but it didn't just stop at that. It was just a lot of different twists on the way real estate is done and transacted and marketed that, in some cases, probably our brokerage wouldn't have had a problem with it. But in other cases, we said, you know what, we think we just came up with something cool and we want to own this.
Yeah,
right?
I love it.
So, I mean, it's probably unfair to point a finger at our brokerage and say, like, we never actually went to them and said, hey, would you be cool if we did this?
Yes, yeah.
We just said, we think this is cool, we want to build it, and it's easier for us to do it 100% according to our own rules, screw up ourselves, run into problems and successes ourselves, and no one's going to be breathing down our neck except for the own issues that we create and have to, fires we have to put out ourselves. So that's what led to the brokerage for us as well.
Okay. So not only, how long were you even in real estate before you had this
couple
type
years.
of an idea? Yeah, okay.
Well, maybe not even a couple of years. I shouldn't even say that. The idea came towards the end of my first year trading, and the auction side of things came. We were watching a story a lot of people might have seen on CBC Marketplace. They did kind of a behind-the-scenes expose of bidding wars.
Yeah.
And it was basically catching that, fraction of 1% of realtors who don't do things in a savory way out there.
It happens.
And they brought it to light in a sense that, it made it look like it's a more rampant problem than it is. However, it exposed what a lot of people are looking for in the industry, which is more transparency.
Yeah, absolutely.
During the story, the question was asked, and they brought up how it's done in Australia. In Australia, auctions and open auctions are a big thing. They basically said, why can't that be done here? That was the question that was asked. And Katie and I looked at each other and said, why can't that be done here, right? And there's reasons. There was a reality to why it isn't done. But rather than say, well, it's not being done, so I guess it can't be done, let's just put our heads down, we took it upon ourselves to look into it and try to answer the question. And that began the journey of, it was really that story that got us trying to see if there was a way to break through and address a bit of the transparency issue.
So why do you think that auctions haven't been done before? And what do you think the reasoning behind, is it Rico who said that that's, not favorable?
Yeah, I mean, Rico, it's interesting the way the rules read. It's the black and white rule says a realtor is not allowed to disclose the contents of a competing bid.
Right.
Which in effect basically says if you're a realtor, you can't do an open auction. That's basically what that rule says. So from the regulatory perspective, realtors can't. And that's why I think people came full stop at that and said, well, I guess I can't do it.
Right.
The interesting thing is when it comes to auctions, what it says is auctioneers are only allowed to auction real estate, or like the only ones allowed to auction real estate. So not a realtor, but as an auctioneer, you can. So an auctioneer can sell an auction, but a realtor can't. And that's why, more, in Canada and Ontario, people see farm auctions. People see property auctions in more rural areas where auctioneers are doing them. And, and we have seen a little bit more so some auction companies from the States come in, like Concierge and some of these bigger names who do one-off event properties. Yeah. But typically and historically, realtors haven't been doing it, and it's primarily because of that regulation.
So do you need... pardon my ignorance, but do you need an auctioneer's license?
The short answer is yes. Yeah. I mean, and to us at least, that was what we saw as the solution initially. Yeah. Was let's figure out how to become an auctioneer, and whether it was one of us wearing a realtor hat, one of us being an auctioneer, or bringing in someone from outside to be the auctioneer, let's figure out how to do this. Initially, it was me that became the auctioneer, so I got an auctioneer's license. Did you learn I can't really talk any faster than I am right now, and that's about as fast as I can talk, and you might not understand me. But no, that wasn't really. I mean, it was.
That's not a job requirement.
No, it was strangely. I mean, and it's kind of a cool thing I was hoping to learn, but No, the license process, truth be told, isn't that complicated, but went through it, and so I was, emphasis on was, but in the beginning I was a licensed auctioneer and represented that side of our business. The other thing we did, and still continue to do now, is our brokerage was a separate entity from the auction company.
Okay.
So even though the branding was similar and all that, the actual auctions themselves don't take place under the umbrella of the brokerage. The transaction and everything else still operates exactly the same way. So MLS and all that, and the way that we operate as a brokerage, but the actual auction process takes place over here.
Okay.
So it's it was towing the line, I guess you could say. I mean, it wasn't intentionally doing anything to blur things, but it was trying to understand what the rules were and make
because
this
it's never
work
been
within
done before. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. We're going to go take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the inner workings of the auction and the way your company does things.
Sure.
We'll be back.
My name is Trish Curling, and I am an online coach, personal trainer, and yoga teacher, and your new host of Shaping Life, which is all about understanding that we have the ability and the control to take charge of our health and wellness. But we can't do it alone, and I can't wait to sit down with the best in the industry. Please tune in every Friday at 1 p.m. live here on the TCN Network.
Hello everyone, my name is Jermaine Chambers, and I'm very excited to tell you about the newest political and current affairs program coming here to Brampton. It's called On Point.
The first step of true reconciliation is learning more about one another.
Join us on Tuesdays from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. as we discuss all the issues.
I will never forget the trust you put in me.
Municipal, provincial, federal, and any issue of national importance, we will talk about on Point. So do join us.
And we're back. Thank you very much for sticking with us. Our guest, Dan Steinfeld, was just about to dive into how auctioning works in the real estate world. So when you first found out about this method, obviously a lot of research you had to do goes into something like this. But you were just, we ended off the conversation where you had to have two entities, or you had two entities. What's the whole story behind that, and why did you have to do it, and what's happening now?
At the time, we wanted to be super careful. We wanted to make sure that if we were going to do this, our biggest concern was you don't want to put all the work into building something and then being shut down out of the gate, right? Because this wasn't a case of we were going to get a property, stand on a front lawn, and just take bids. Like we've built a platform, which I guess we can talk about a bit, but the whole auction process is done online. And building the platform and developing an auction platform from scratch was a pretty costly and time-consuming process.
Yeah, I bet.
We needed to ensure that on the other side of things, just on the business and regulatory side, that we weren't going to do anything that would render it useless after we invested in building it. So we made sure to be super careful with all that. We read, double read, brought lawyers in, ensured that we understood the letter of the law well, and then went full steam ahead with it.
Awesome. So now that you're fully operational, how does it work? Walk us through your online platform, and so because this is when I first heard about this, and I don't want to jump ahead too much, but so you can redirect this any way you want. But when I first heard about this, I was like, okay, so if I'm representing a buyer, and I'm a realtor, do I just log onto your website and submit the offer essentially?
At its core, that's one way to put it. Yeah,
Okay.
I think there's a lot of common questions that we get. I mean, that's the biggest one we get is from buyers' agents, right? Because the process itself is exactly identical to that of an offer date situation or the bidding wars people are familiar with. The one huge difference being that the actual process of bidding is taking place online in a transparent, open forum. Other than that, everything that leads up to that, whether it be the way it's listed, the way we stage the home, take the pictures, do showings, everything's done the same way. Agents are still, or realtors are still, booking their showings, taking their clients through. We do typically allow for preemptives the same way.
Yeah.
So, not to jump to that situation, but prior to the auction taking place, probably almost half of our auctions have sold before the auction has happened.
Yeah.
In a way that people are familiar with a preemptive offer. And so the auction process, to answer your question, is typically the buyer will be the one logging in and bidding. Part of their registration process is they identify their realtor when they register. Their realtor's kept in tune with it from beginning to end. So the moment they register, the realtor is getting emails and updates saying, hey, your client just registered to bid. They might not have bid yet, but just so you know, this is happening.
Okay.
Cooperation is exactly the same. So there's no skimping on commissions or anything like that. So everything's done. And we learned that and established that early on, where this isn't a case. And probably the number one point we wanted to get through and continue to want to get through is this isn't built to cut agents out of the equation. This is actually dependent on participation of the cooperating brokers, cooperating realtors, because without them, we're not showing. It's the same as another listing. We're not getting the house shown. People aren't being directed to participate.
Right.
But when the buyer will register, and the registration process is pretty extensive to bid, they're in there as the person who will be the name on the purchase and sale agreement when all is said and done. The reason we prefer that the agents don't, and we've had realtors log in and bid on their client's behalf, the reason that that's a bit risky for the realtor is if they win the auction and they go to their buyer and say, hey, we won, it's $1.5 million, and the buyer says, I'm just kidding, or I don't want it.
Right.
Contractually speaking, now the realtor's on the hook to buy the place. So we've asked that the realtors instruct their buyers and stay with them every step of the way. And if they're concerned.
So when they submit, do they submit? Is it just options or like a text box and just say, no, we want to go this, or is it more like, is there any signed paperwork at the registration time?
At the time of registration, the one thing that's signed is basically the agreement associated with the auction. So these are what you are agreeing to as a bidder, and these are the terms you're bound to.
Yeah.
Part of that is, you register when you're bidding with a credit card. That's not charged, but there's a pre-authorization. So we're not taking a huge fee or anything.
You're not
but
taking like $1.5 million?
Yeah, no, right out of the gate, whatever you buy it for is getting charged to your card. No, there's a pre-authorization that's pretty sizable, and it's held as a protection against things like what we call delinquent bids.
Yeah.
If someone bids something and then wants to walk away, then they're penalized.
Yeah, that's just like a deposit attached with the offer.
It's a deposit, exactly. But rather than making everybody submit a bank draft ahead of time, because people could be bidding from anywhere, we just make sure that both from a fraud prevention, from an identity confirmation, it all goes through authorized.net, so we know that the people bidding are who they say they are. And from protecting the bid, it does that as well. As far as paperwork, though, goes, our whole auction platform is built on transparency. It's built on people obviously knowing what the price is going to be, but also what they're getting into. So the actual agreement of purchase and sale is made available to download and review ahead of time. So as a buyer, as a realtor, you can download the APS, and it's filled out with everything with the exception of the price, the name of the purchaser, and typically the closing date, unless there's a set date that the seller wants.
Yeah.
And everything else is there. So the Schedule A, the Schedule B, everything's pre-populated so that the auction itself is only operating with the variable of price.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask, because what about certain conditions, home inspection, financing?
Exactly, yeah. So home inspections, for every auction we do a pre-list home inspection with a third party. We make it available for download. It's not that dissimilar from some of these offer dates too, where they do that because they want people to come in clean.
Right.
We require you come in clean because we're providing that ahead of time. If somebody wants to do their own inspection, they'd be able to do one ahead of the auction, but you can't add that as a stipulation of your bid.
Cool.
Financing is an interesting one, especially given the climate of mortgages and the uncertainty around that now. We've done auctions both ways. Some where it's a clean offer and financing is also waived, and you better come in understanding that you don't get that as a condition. That's generally how auctions in other jurisdictions operate, is that it's a completely as-is, clean offer.
That's right.
We have had situations where we include financing as a mandatory condition that everybody gets, even if you don't need it. And that, it brings more bidders to the table because there's a sense of comfort, but it also doesn't give that finality to the process when it's done. And as a seller, you're like, well, it's sold, but now they're protected by this as well.
Yeah.
So that still is a slightly moving target. We tend to move to the let's keep it clean perspective.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, it's not like you're in a market that wouldn't provide buyers that can, afford what they're actually buying.
Right. We try to educate people and make them sort of aware of what they're getting into, and we also aren't looking to make this a situation. Obviously, we'd love the price to go up as high as it's willing to go, but it won't go to sort of an unappraisable value. And if it does, we would hope that it's somebody who's got the means to pay what they're bidding. Right. And we haven't run into any of those situations yet for all the auctions that we've done, which is good as well. The only other real variables are, as I said, closing date. Typically, we'll give a range. So, let's say it's 30 to 90 or 60 to 90. As a buyer, as long as you end in that zone, once you buy it, just tell us the date that you want. We populate it with that. The deposit is preset. So that's another thing in bidding wars. Sometimes people try to differentiate because this one's bringing 100,000, this one's bringing 25,000.
Right.
Who's got a better offer? If one is $5,000 more with a lower deposit, this takes that all out of there, where people are competing on price.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a static deposit.
Yeah.
And that all goes the same way.
Yeah. You see, the reason why I love that so much is because when you have offer dates or you're in multiple offer situations, it's just there's so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
And if the buyers said, look, I could have afforded maybe $2,000 more, $5,000 more, $10,000, whatever it is, and I think the way that traditionally we are doing it, I think that causes more problems than having something that you have. For an industry that's all about transparency, I totally understand the fact that we're protecting our clients, offers, and I understand that, but at the same time, sometimes you don't know how many times, especially 2017, 2016, where people, oh God, I could have afforded that extra amount.
That's right.
What did it sell for? Oh, sorry, it sold for $1,000 more than you wanted, and we didn't hear from the listing agent. That we had another opportunity, right?
What do you do when a listing agent says, try again?
Yeah.
Right? Even as a realtor, you don't know how to best advise your client. Well, what does that mean?
Well, what does that mean?
Right. So
is there anything you want to improve on?
Right. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge. And in some cases, you're already in the lead and you don't know. So in this case, the argument's been there as an agent saying, well, hey, how are they going to get their best price? Because now we're not going to get those people who are outbidding themselves because they don't know any better. Mm-hmm. Maybe so. But at the same time, this keeps all the buyers around who are so disenchanted with the blind process, or who otherwise, when they hear, oh, it's an offer date, forget it.
Yeah,
this keeps people in.
That honestly happens a lot. So we're going to take a quick break, head into our final segment. We're going to find out more about the actual brokerage that Dan and Katie are operating, the future of it, and we'll see you soon.
Hello everyone, my name is Jermaine Chambers, and I'm very excited to tell you about the newest political and current affairs program coming here to Brampton. It's called On Point.
The first step of true reconciliation is learning more about one another.
Join us on Tuesdays from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. as we discuss all the issues.
I will never forget the trust you put in me.
Municipal, provincial, federal, and any issue of national importance, we will talk about on Point. So do join us.
And we're back. Thank you very much for staying with us, guys. We are in our last segment. Dan Steinfeld from On the Block Realty. Thank you very much for coming on the show. So you've started the brokerage. You've explained the auction process, and we really appreciate you being transparent with us. we all really appreciate that. So now you've got a physical brokerage now, right? That you've been working on for the past 9 months, right? Tell us a little bit about that, and
Yeah, no, we're building our bricks and mortar, and actually from here, I'm heading to get the final sign off from the city on occupancy, because our grand opening is on November 16th. Everyone's invited, so
nice.
It's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a good time.
And where is this located?
It's at Weston and Langstaff, so it's in Vaughan. It's a great space. I mean,
I saw pictures of it. It looks great. Fantastic.
It's been fun. This has been a labor of love for us as designing the office. And
I mean, black wall. What a great choice! Isn't that what you did?
That's what we're all about.
The boardroom, right?
Yeah, no, black wall. It's black. I don't want to ruin the surprise too much. But I guess we're sharing a lot of it on Instagram and all that. But yeah, black, gold, and
I love it. I love the branding.
Yeah,
you've done a fantastic job.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been awesome, and we're looking forward to officially opening to the public in less than a couple weeks now. But we've been operating there for the last month or two and getting our feet wet and enjoying the space.
Do you have the agents yet?
We do, yeah. We've got a team of agents, and we're very steadily and excitedly growing that. We're heavily right now into recruiting, and now that we've kind of gone through proof of concept and proof of auction model and all that, and I should say the auctions are only about 10-15% of the transactions we do. So we're not an auction brokerage or anything like that.
This is actually good to know.
And plus, because we're two companies, auctions are also something we've offered to other brokerages. So for people,
so you can take control of.
Yeah, so people can actually auction their properties if they've got their own listings. They work alongside our auction company.
That's very interesting.
That's a whole other side of things. That it's a discussion for another day. But if anybody's interested, they could feel free to reach out and find out more. But yeah, we're recruiting right now, looking for more agents. Yeah.
Let's just say somebody was watching this show that has been interested in what you've said so far, or maybe they're thinking of switching things up.
Yep.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but what would your value prop be? What was your pitch, I guess you could say?
I think more than anything, we understand that everybody's different, and not everybody's looking for the one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah.
We get things done. I think the auctions are a great example of sticking to something through. I mean, I didn't touch on any of the peaks and valleys we've gone through, but at the end of the day, we're progressive, we're forward-thinking, and we're looking to grow a team with us that really go forward with a similar mindset, who are looking to just, I don't want to say improve. This isn't about changing things. It's about providing more choice. It's about coming up with solutions that just better the experience for consumers. And we treat our realtors the exact same way. And that's our goal, is to just grow a really tight team of people who want to grow themselves and build their brands, and we're there to support them.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so you've got, I know this is really early to ask something, but what's your goals for the future? You've got the first office. Any hopes to open another one down the road, expand, go into different towns?
Well, hey, we're taking over the world, right? One office at a time. No, you know what? We're very focused right now on making this, the best office it can be. We're not looking to be, a 500-person brokerage. We're not that kind of a team where it's like, let's just get people and let's just do that. We want to build a tight team, and if that gets, knock on wood, that gets big enough where it merits opening another location, I think for us, absolutely, we'd want to, geographically spread out there and have a physical presence in more places. The realtors on our team right now are all over the place. We have one in Durham. And the beauty of technology allows us to be everywhere. But our goal on the realtor side is to grow the team and to really build our brand. And on the auction side is we really want those to gain some steam, and we want to be the go-to for people who are interested in that avenue. We want them to know On the Block is the way to go when you want to do that sort of a transaction as well.
That's very interesting. So we know that once you're licensed in Ontario, you can sell over Ontario. Now, would you think that research would need to be done in different markets, or do you just think let's try it out? I mean, it's not like you're starting it off at $1 with no pictures or anything like that.
Right. It's not that kind of an auction.
Yeah. So it's a standard listing, but just with more transparency, right? So what do you think about that? Other markets?
We're definitely interested. We've done one in BC.
Really?
Which was an interesting process. And for those, it's not where we've focused right now. But
right, of course.
But yeah, absolutely. Our process there is, because we're able to partner with other brokers, in those situations, the auction becomes a tool that they use to sell their properties. So we had a property in BC where there was an agent trying to sell it. Their client wanted to try the auction route. And because this is a very limited, if at all, available option in Canada,
right,
they found us, and we ran the auction for them, where the auction technically still takes place in Vaughan.
Right.
Because the laws of the internet, I guess. Yeah. But the transaction was still ran the same way in BC. And so we've got another one, it looks like, in New Brunswick coming up early in the new year.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, and for anybody who wants to see, I'll just throw this quick plug. But if anyone wants to see the auction in action, we do have a demo that runs 24 hours a day. There's fake properties for auction. It's on our website at otbauctions.com. Go and bid, buy a fake house, and you can actually see how it works.
Try it yourself.
Yeah, so it's not
like
just a video.
A video that's
it's the actual platform. Wow. It works. If you've used eBay, it's similar. There's a lot more real estate specific things in there, but it gives you an opportunity. Or if when we run auctions, we direct prospective buyers there too to try it and get comfortable, so that before they click a button for $1 million for real, they've got an understanding of what they're getting into.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Very interesting concept. All right, so we're just about to run down the clock on our latest episode here. Dan, we've got 3 minutes. Just pitch. Where can we find you? How can people get in touch with you? All your social media plugs. Let's hear it.
Okay. Well, social media. I just recently got Instagram, so help me out. I'm at Steinfeld.
Too busy revolutionizing the real estate industry.
No, it's I'm catching up. But you can follow our brokerage at Get On The Block. That's for all the platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're at Get On The Block. It's also getontheblock.com is our brokerage's website, where you can learn more about what we do as a brokerage, learn more if you're interested in talking to us about joining up. That's there too. And myself, I'm at Steinfeld Says, again, on all the platforms.
Yeah.
And follow me.
Not to
I'll
be
follow you
confused
back.
with Seinfeld Says.
Yeah, not Steinfeld Says. Yeah, throw a T in there.
Instagram meme account.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, you can. That might still be available. Yeah. So yeah, you can grab that. We can compete.
Well, you know what, Dan? You've done a lot of interviews, on local television, and now you're on my show.
Well, this is the big time now.
This
now,
is the
now
big time,
I've made
the
it.
Daily
now
Real. But thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate that. Guys, if you have any questions, I did insert all of his Dan and Katie in On The Block. All their social media links in the description, so please reach out to them if you have any questions. Thank you again for another amazing episode, and we will see you next week.